Hi, my name is Sneha, and I'm the founder of the Psychology Nook.
Hi, this is Monali, co-founder of Psychology Nook. We welcome you to our very first video blog. So this is a small project where we have decided to have conversation surrounding mental health with some mental health professionals or anybody else.
So today's guest is actually really special. She is a cancer survivor. This is exactly why we're releasing this video on Cancer Survivor Day, which is 7th June. Now, she's ironically also a cancer researcher. And what makes this video even more special is that she's my best friend of the last 14, 15 years. And I am so happy that she agreed to do this. So let's just add her in. Janvi, your video is not on. Hi, Janvi.
Hi, Janvi.
Hello. How are you?
We're good. How are you?
Thanks.
So thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Like, we're really grateful. Seriously grateful.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So should we start? Let's just start with the interview.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Janvi, can you tell us a little more about the time when you were diagnosed with cancer and what was your initial reaction to that whole thing?
Yeah. So when I was diagnosed, it was the year of 2018, July 2018. I was in Oxford, and it started off as a general doctor's appointment where you feel a lump in your breast, you're slightly worried. You go to the doctor, and the doctor tells you, oh yeah, it's probably just a fibroid because you're only just 23. This happens in a lot of women your age. You're not in the risk group at all. And this is exactly what happened. And I was relieved. My doctor was like, you know what, because you have a history of cancer, because your aunt is positive for the BRCA gene, just go have a biopsy. And I go for my biopsy. I get my biopsy done. Mind is at ease. 2 weeks later, the doctor calls me in and she says to me that you have grade 3 aggressive triple negative carcinoma of the breast. And it's invaded your lymph system and you need to start therapy within 2 weeks. So decide where you want to get it, prepare, make all the arrangements, inform whoever you want. And my mom was with me. And yeah, it was obviously the first time when you hear something like this, because obviously my mind was put to ease by the doctors, and they were like, you know what, you're only just 23 and this keeps happening. It's a fibroid. It's probably benign. Like worst case scenario, you just have to undergo tiny little surgery. We'll just take out the fibroid, whatever. And then this is like huge news. You know that this is going to be life altering and that it's going to alter in your plans. And then you have to soak it all up and then prepare for treatment. So my first initial reaction when she said that I have cancer was probably a little bit of shock mixed with confusion, right? Because obviously I look after myself, I'm not obese, whatever. And then I think the main reaction to all of this came when she told me that I need chemotherapy. Because something that, so I was thinking, oh yeah, well, I do have cancer, but maybe I could get away with radiotherapy or radiation, whatever. Then she said, nope, you're going to need chemotherapy. And it was a reaction of shock before acceptance, right? And yeah, like I think this is how it began. Although thankfully, because I work with stem cells and I am a stem cell biologist and I have a bit of background in cancer because I work in a cancer lab. I didn't quite have time to wallow over the fact that I have cancer. So I have cancer, shock, chemotherapy, shock.
Yeah.
Acceptance, what do I do next? Right? So I think that helped massively. But yeah, then I just flew back to India and started my treatment almost immediately within a week. So that's how it went.
So speaking of acceptance,
so you started the treatment, right? So when the whole team was there for treating the cancer, were you suggested to go for a therapy, or was there a psycho-oncologist on the team?
No. So obviously, because I had my my treatment done in India, because this is where my support system is. not at all. They didn't even mention the psycho-oncologist, nothing to do with mental health. Although when I was diagnosed here, my oncologist here told me that there are support groups, there are Macmillan support groups, there's cafes that you just walk into, and there's a psycho-oncologist. You can just approach them. It's very informal and it's not by appointment. You just have a referral to say that, right, you're suffering from the disease. You just go there and you just talk to people. It's like a normal, regular conversation, just as you would, walk into any bar or a cafe and just like start a conversation with a stranger, except obviously these are trained professionals. And you see a lot of cancer patients who are either going through it or are experiencing PTSD, coming to them, having a conversations. The cancer patients themselves having support groups. So here it is like a very established system, and doctors do refer you to specially trained therapists to talk about your disease. But in India, it is no, like I had not heard this word of a psycho-oncologist till probably like much later, after I had even finished. So yeah.
Psycho-oncologist, it's like an important step when you're going through such a life-changing situation.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, so they help you with stress, with coping. They walk you through the knowledge. Like we know cancer, but we don't know the details of it when the person is suffering, when the person is going through chemotherapy. So at that point of time, the patient, the person who is suffering, really could do with some knowledge, and that is what a psychotherapist helps with.
Also, this is really interesting that they have cafes where you can just casually go in and you can like see the therapist, because the thing is that, okay, forget cancer for a second, but just the fact of going to therapy is such a big thing. Like there's so much stigma that's attached to it. Exactly. It's like, oh my God, she goes for therapy, like she must have issues, but and then add the cancer stigma to it, so there's like a double stigma playing over here. So it's really cool that they've made such a safe place, but then again, it's very casual, so that you're just walking in, you're going for a cup of coffee, and you're coming out with a bit of help, I mean, it's incredible. Only if we had something like this over here, I mean, it would work. I feel like it would work. I mean, we've got these cafes and whatnot, and why not a therapy cafe? I mean, that's just
exactly cool. And I think one of the things that's striking about these cafes as well is that when you go in there, you obviously have patients who are undergoing chemotherapy or radiation, right? So when it comes to the whole cancer stigma, one of the most evident things that a person has cancer is, let's say, loss of hair, right? And you see people in these cafes who are obviously bald because of treatment, and you can make out that there's something not quite right about them, but then they come to this cafe and then they see 10 more people who are undergoing the same thing. So it kind of like brings that out that, I'm the only person who's going through this. Do I need to be conscious about the way I look? Because there's 10 other people who are undergoing the same thing, and there's professionals who are casual, they literally treat you as though you're a friend and not a therapist, which is, I think, more inviting than anything else, right?
Yeah. Also, this is a perfect example of group therapy also. I mean, we have group therapy for usually addictions, like for alcoholism and other addictions and all. We've got group therapy so that you are finding support not only in your therapist, but you are finding support in other people that are going through the exact same thing. So you don't feel alone, basically. So this is a great concept. It's quite cool. It's quite cool. So my next question is, it's related to the grief cycle. So when you find out about such a life-altering diagnosis, as you said, there is a sense of loss, because you are feeling a sense of loss of your normal life. You can't live normally anymore. You're in isolation. You can't go to places. You can't eat a few things. There are so many restrictions that are put on you that weren't there before. So there's a grief cycle, which you may know of, and we've written an article about it. So if anyone wants to know a little more about it, they can. So basically the cycle, there's stages, and the stages are basically, so they start from denial, and then there's anger, there's bargaining, okay? There's bargaining, there's
Definitely.
depression, and then there's acceptance finally. But it's not necessary that each person goes through every single stage, and they can go through the stages in whatever manner they, are suited. So did you or anyone around you, I mean, because this applies to caregivers also. So did anyone go through these stages? Did you go through these stages?
Yeah, so in my case, I think it was slightly more different because I was the person in my family who had the most knowledge about this. So as soon as I learned about the diagnosis, I immediately delved into the literature, the papers, the statistics, and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to happen. This is the reason why this is going to happen. These are the pathways affecting this mechanism. So I think other than the shock, I was depressed, yes, because obviously cancer takes a toll on your mental health as well. But I don't think I went through all the cycles, all the stages of the grief cycle. In the end, when the drugs were high and I was already weak from them, towards the end, yeah, obviously I did suffer from depression. But I think the grief cycle was quite evident in the people around me. So my family especially, because it's hard to accept the fact that your 23-year-old daughter now has cancer and has to go through a year-long treatment, right? And yeah, so the first reaction from them, especially my parents, was mostly it was not accepting the fact or making excuses for the fact that because even when I was diagnosed in Oxford, and thankfully my parents were vacationing in Oxford with me when I was diagnosed, so when I told them the news, it was more like yeah, maybe we should seek a second opinion. Let's see what the doctors in India say. Is it that serious? We don't know if it's that serious. So denial. They were in complete denial. Yeah, and then after denial came the anger, because when the doctors said to me that these reports are legit, and we've re-examined the biopsy, everything's as they said in Oxford, and it is quite serious, and you have to undergo all this. And you have to accept this fact. Then it was obviously anger, because they were like, oh, how can, like, this is ridiculous, like she is only just 23. So it was anger directed at not any particular source, it was just anger, because obviously they did not want to accept this fact, right? So I think they did go through this, and in the end, I think it took them some time to, even like as I was going through chemotherapy, it was quite difficult for them to cope with this. Obviously because they saw my physical body changing, and then like in the end, I think and I used to make an effort to tell them about why it's changing, to give them the science behind what it's changing. And after like a few chemotherapies, when they understood the logic behind it, and then there was acceptance. So for them, I saw the grief cycle in them more than I saw it in me. And maybe like they would have a different opinion, because I don't know how I looked like dealing with the whole disease from a third person's perspective. But I don't think I went through the whole cycle before accepting the disease.
Right. So basically you're saying that having the information firsthand, because you are a cancer researcher, you know the depths of it. So having that information actually proved to be a benefit and some kind of a tool that you used in this journey of yours, in survival.
Definitely. Because I think most of the stigma of cancer comes from you not knowing enough about it. And if you know what the drugs are doing to your body, right? Like, just for an example, I say this to a lot of people, but this is like a very good example because it's quite physical. Hair loss, right? It's quite physical. And the reason why hair loss happens is because these chemotherapy drugs are targeting your actively dividing cells, which also are cancer cells, by the way. So they're actively dividing, and so is your hair root follicle. And the fact that you're facing hair loss is actually a positive sign, because the drugs are doing what they're supposed to do. They're targeting actively dividing cells. So if you look at it from this perspective, hair loss seems like a very trivial and a very like, you just accept it. You're like, oh yeah, like this drug is actually working. So it gives a positive connotation rather than a negative connotation.
Yes.
And this has to do with information. So people who don't know this and undergo hair loss, for them it's going to be like, oh my God, what is happening? What are the drugs doing to my system? They're going to blame themselves. They're going to blame the doctor. Is it me? Is it my body that's doing this because I don't look normal? It's just lack of information. And one thing that I want to stress here is that doctors, especially, like some of my doctors were fantastic and they answered every question that I had. Some of them, not so much, because information is power and they want to keep the power to themselves. So they don't want to give detailed information about the disease to the patient. And this is what causes a scare within the patient,
Yeah.
and it's difficult to deal with.
Yeah. So in REPT, there's a therapy called REPT, in which basically when we are before we start the therapy, rather, we psychoeducate the patient on what kind of a psychiatric illness, what kind of a mental illness that the person has, or why he's been referred to therapy. And we're basically giving information, the information that you're talking about that should be given. This is the same kind of information that we give. At the same time, especially in REBT, there's a lot of bibliography. So basically reading material on coping mechanisms, on if there are negative thoughts, then why are these these irrational thoughts? How do they occur? How can you identify them? So this is all information. So do you think if there was a psycho-oncologist, because this is usually what a psycho-oncologist does, the information giving part, the coping mechanisms, all this information is given by that psycho-oncologist. So if there was a person like that, or if any medical professional had taken on that role, do you think that would have helped?
Yes, and I think one of the major reasons why, as you explained, the psycho-oncologist is important is because if you go on Google and search, type in the exact medical terms, let's say triple negative, grade 3 ductal carcinoma, right? There's going to be a bunch of Google scholarly articles. You click on one of them. If you're a layman, you're not going to understand anything about what that article is saying. You don't know what it's saying. And if there was a medium through which you could actually access this information and understand it, which should be a therapist, it would make their lives so much easier.
Yeah.
Because you're literally just talking to a therapist, you're addressing your concerns. The therapist has this database of knowledge, which they're basically just translating like scientific terms into normal terms, like a public engagement activity, right? And it's almost like you're talking to someone about it and they're just giving you information. Once you have this information, you know how to process your disease. But imagine being someone who is not accustomed to reading these papers or this literature, and firstly, they wouldn't do this. Like in a lot of cases, they just don't want to look at it. They're already going through so much. If they muster the strength to actually look at it, they're going to look at it and they are not going to have a clue about what it's about. So I think it's extremely important to have a medium, and even for medical professionals, if they don't recommend, they should do it, or they should have a therapist do it, because a therapist would better understand what state the patient is in mentally rather than the medical oncologist or oncosurgeon for that matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, in the knowledge about the disease, whatever, or the side effects, understanding what those are, is the key factor here, which will help anybody to, somewhere normalize the symptoms or the side effects. Like, for example, you mentioned about the hair loss. If somebody understands that this in long term is doing something good for me with the current hair fall, is a knowledge that will definitely reduce the negative aspect of this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's going to take away a huge mental burden as well, because you're dealing with it physically and it's not easy dealing with it physically. So if your mental burden is taken away or it's lightened, it's always a good thing to go through it rather than, clueless and scared about it.
So talking about the mental health aspect of it, so I'm sure you went through a lot of phases where there was stress, there was worry. Then what was your support system during this? Like, what helped you feel a little better or be more accepting of this whole thing?
So my support system, fortunately, I had my whole family. I was living with my family whilst I was undergoing treatment, and they were obviously a huge part in the treatment. You know, they were constantly trying to make me feel better, just like doing whatever they could in their capacity to ease the burden on me. So yeah, family was my main primary support system. Not main, but they were the primary support system. But what gave me the strength, or what gave me hope to cope, was my friends entirely. Like, they were amazing. There wasn't one friend who didn't reach out to me. Even people who weren't friends, actually, they didn't reach out to me. But my core group of friends, you know, they were the ones who made me feel better on a regular basis. And just small things like, one of my friends, Nishita, she used to come home, talk to me every day. Half an hour before her clinic, she would make it a point to come and talk to me. My other friend Pushkar would bring orchids. Like, he has never done this, right? But he did it because he just wanted to see that little smile that comes to my face when I see orchids. Or you and Janak and whoever my closest friends are. It was amazing, and it was just beautiful. And I think this is why they were my one link to normalcy, you know. And because your life is so abnormal during this stage, just talking to your friends about the most mundane things about what's going on in their life, just gossiping, whatever, it just makes you feel so normal for those whatever hour and a half, that you literally forget about everything else. And there's been times when I'm suffering, when I have bone ache, when I have, you know, I'm feeling extremely nauseous, whatever, and I'm almost calling off meeting my friends. I'm telling them that, you know what, I don't feel so well, and they're like, yeah, you know what, we are just going to come and sit in the living room. Anytime you feel like you want to leave, just go and lie down, but we are just going to come.
Yeah.
Come and sit in the living room. And I've sit with them, and I've realized that hour and a half later, I'm not feeling nauseous anymore, or I'm not thinking about my bone ache anymore. You know, so these were the support systems which basically, like, it was just incredible. So yeah, I would say my family and my friends, they were my poles of support in
Did
this
you ever
disease.
come across any situation where you were looked at differently when people saw that, you know, you're either your hair is falling out, or when you have mentioned that, oh, okay, I'm a cancer patient, I'm undergoing chemotherapy? Did anyone, and I know that your support system, like your friends and your family, obviously they didn't look at you any different, but someone that maybe is an acquaintance, did they
Oh
ever
yeah,
look at you?
yeah, because I mean, I was quite vocal about my disease. So the moment I was diagnosed, you know, I just posted a status, and this was the main reason, right? Because I didn't want to go back to India. I knew that I would be interacting with people who are acquaintances or whatever. They would see me and they would see that I have changed physically, and they'd be like, like not quite sure about what's happened there, curious, awkward questions. I just wanted to avoid all of that. So I just announced on Instagram that, guys, this is what is happening. And yeah, and the moment this was out there, people obviously did look at me differently. Because now I was this one person who has cancer and who's talking about it. And it was both a positive and a negative thing. Because positive, because I got messages from so many people who I didn't know were thinking about me, you know. So it was a nice, pleasant thing just to see that, oh, everyone in Pune is actually reaching out to me and telling me that, you know, if you need anything, we are here for you. And it was really nice. On the other hand, people would walk if I went out, and if I bumped into someone who I knew, then they would walk on eggshells around me, right? Like, sometimes this would happen, and they didn't quite know. They wanted to ask me how my treatment was going, but then they would be like, should I, is she bothered by it? So yeah, people definitely looked at me different, for sure. And they still look at me different even after I've gone through all of it.
Yeah, so you're a person who likes dark humor a lot. Like, I've known this
Yeah.
about you forever. So you have made quite a lot of jokes about your diagnosis and, you know, the effects of it and everything. Did that rub people the wrong way? Like, oh my God, what is she saying? Why is she saying that? Like, did that ever happen?
I mean, not that I know of. Hopefully people who were offended just blocked me. But I think people who replied to my story, they were like, yeah, you know, lol, whatever. So I haven't gotten any backlash from posting this also, because this is the thing that brings me to my previous point, right? Because people don't know. Now she has cancer and now she's made a joke about it. So if I laugh about it, yeah, I mean, she is laughing about it, so why not? So I'm just going to post a smiley face. But if I don't agree with this, how do I respectfully tell her this? Because now she has cancer, you know. So it's quite weird. So I think that's why people who maybe, I don't know if I rubbed them off the wrong way, but if they did, then I don't think they had the courage to actually like reach out to me and be like, oh, you know what, this is actually, we don't feel comfortable that you're posting this content or whatever. So yeah, I mean, each to their own beauty.
Yeah.
um,
So,
yeah.
stigma of being a cancer patient. Now, what about the stigma of being a cancer survivor? Because I'm pretty sure you get really tired hearing this, that, oh, she's the survivor,
Yeah.
oh, she defeated cancer, you know, like, oh, she's so
Yeah.
strong. Like, sometimes do you feel like, just, I'm Janvi, just stop it. I'm just Janvi.
I can't tell you, like, yeah, this can't be said enough number of times that I am the same person that I was before the disease. I have gotten the disease. I have come out of. I am now in remission, so I'm normal now. Like, people can stop treating me. Not, I mean, don't stop treating me nicely, but you know, nicely just because I had cancer. Like, treat me nicely, but because I'm your friend or acquaintance, whatever. Don't treat me nicely just because you feel like you have to, you know, if that makes sense. And yeah, I do come across this because yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. I don't know how to explain it. And I also, they can't be blamed because they haven't been exposed to the disease enough to then normalize it, you know. So they don't know how to react to it. Or even some new friends that I've made after after I finished my radiation. um, I was allowed to finally go out and party and whatever. And I've met people socially and they don't know this about me. And then they followed me on Instagram and then they've seen this cancer post. And then they come to me and they say, oh my God. And then I can see like a sudden shift where first they're being all nice and casual and engaging in dark humor, sarcasm, whatever. And then suddenly they are like, oh my God, we respect you so much. I was like, yeah, but I mean, this is not a, I mean, respect me, but not just because I came out successful the other end, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like quite regularly I face this. And I think I'm always going to face this no matter what I do, because it's taboo to talk about cancer. It hasn't been normalized in the society yet. So I mean, I get it.
So yeah, so coming back to that point, me and Monali were actually discussing this, that cancer is a synonym, I would say, for death or pain, you know, which is ridiculous if you ask me, because it's just it's just an illness, okay? It's like, it happens, fine. But how would you like to change that?
I mean, I think this is what I mean. Like, information is so important because people look at cancer as they would when it was like 1950s or something. When, yeah, if you're diagnosed with cancer, you basically have no other option. You just have to write your will and like dig your own grave and like make the funeral arrangements. But science has come such a long way, and now in 2020, cancer is not, especially if you catch it early, right? It's not something to be like, yeah, you can't compare it to death because there are treatments, they are harsh. And yeah, we can't equate cancer to cold and flu because it's more intense and your body, it does take a toll. And it's not a good position to be in physically, mentally. But it's not death. Like, you can be cured. So maybe just wait for the doctor to tell you what it is. Then being like, are these people are like, yeah, no, cancer झाला है म्हणजे now the end of life. We don't know what to do. Let's just mourn this person. It's ridiculous. the way to change this is, I think, public engagement, right? People need to know about the advances that have come to cancer therapy. They need to
Of course.
know how, they need to learn more about the survivors rather than the people who have died. And there are far more survivors than there were, like, forget 50, even 20 years ago, because the science, the research is progressing at like crazy paces. It's taking, every week there's something new, every week there's something new happening in this field, and you need to keep up with it. If you want to get rid of the stigma, you need to keep up with it, and you need to have people who have this information spread it to the general population. Even if you get it, even if someone gets it, this is the treatment. It's successful in this many % of the people who get it, and it's quite positive. So you don't need to fear it like death.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the only way. Like, information is the only way to do it.
So you have a project coming up, right? Which has a lot to do with destigmatizing cancer and showing it in a very public manner, the way you're saying, like the whole public engagement aspect that you keep stressing about. This is something that you are also trying to do. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so this project is basically a photo series in collaboration with our very talented friend Shivani. And hopefully you'll provide her details in your blog. But she's extremely talented, and this idea stemmed out of my own experience when I was going through chemotherapy. I would wake up, I would look in the mirror, and I wouldn't recognize myself, right? And the reason is because the treatment takes, it just changes your physical appearance. You don't know who you're looking at. And the one thing that made me feel infinitely better was just waking up, getting dressed, putting on some makeup, and going out. And then I heard comments like, oh, if I hadn't known, or if she hadn't told me that you had cancer, I would have never guessed it. And is that one glint of normalcy that you have again, right? So what we want to do is, we want to click patients who are undergoing chemotherapy treatment. We want to dress them up, we want to click good pictures of them, and we want to basically show society that just because you're a cancer patient, it does not mean that you have to look like one, right? This is one aspect of the project. So this is more for the patient than for the general public. The message to the general public is more that they haven't seen enough number of cancer patients. So whenever they see one, they're curious about them. What's this hair loss? What's going on? They look at them funny. So I think this project is also going to normalize cancer patients in our society a little, Also to see that, oh yeah, she is dressed up, but why shouldn't she be? Like, just because she's a cancer patient doesn't mean she needs to be hooked on to saline all the time. She can look pretty. And I think it's a nice thing, especially for the patient, I think. Because I firmly believe that if you look good, you feel good. Yeah. Like, we can all relate to this, right? It's a very small thing that you can do, but it helps massively. So yeah, we are looking forward to that, and we are currently seeking any leads, any volunteers, anyone who would be willing to participate in this little pet project. So yeah, hopefully give the details, and yeah.
It's a very nice project and a very good idea, because we need to tell people and need to reduce the stigma behind cancer. So I would really tell people, whoever is interested in this, please come forward and contact us. There will be all the details given in the blog and all. People from Pune, preferably, but there's no age limit. Any age is good. We just want to click amazing pictures, because So
this
that's
project,
really good job, Rani.
This project, I mean, commendable, honestly, and congratulations also for the start of it. I'm pretty sure after this video, and I'm pretty sure after the project especially, you're going to be seen as somewhat of a role model, right? So my end note here, I want to know, who was your role model? Was there anyone, some public celebrity, someone you know, that has maybe gone through the similar experience and you looked up to them?
Yeah, so there are two people I'd like to mention. One who is not that well known, but she was she was a beacon of hope. This is a cute little story where one of my friends tagged me on a Humans of Bombay page, and this woman, it was her story about how she got diagnosed, and she's just shaved off her head and she's just roaming freely, and people are coming to her and they're asking her, oh, what's wrong with you, whatever, and then she's just written this really nice article about that. And one of my friends tagged me on this post, and turns out that this woman who this article was written about contacted me on Instagram. And and her name is Shormishtha, and she lives in Bombay, and she was basically, because she was a few months ahead in treatment, and we had the same disease, she was basically paving the path for me. She was like reporting what's coming, and it was very comforting, because then, you know, you have a friend to talk to if you're feeling exhausted, whatever. There's someone who's going through the exact same thing. And so she was a big help. A celebrity who went through the same thing was Sonali Bendre, and I followed her instantly on Facebook when on Instagram when I knew she was going through this. And her posts were just so beautiful. Like, when I looked at them, I was like, this is great. And it gave me self-confidence like I've never had before, you know, to post pictures of myself bald, to do makeup, to dress up pretty. All of this I owe to her. So these two people really did help me through it.
That's beautiful. That's really nice. Especially the person that you got in contact through from that page. That's
yeah, it was extremely random and a happy coincidence. Like, it was quite cool that.
Anyways, I'd like to thank you, Janvi. Thank you so much for coming here and talking to us. I know that it was not an easy thing to do. I know that this is something that takes a lot of strength, and it's something that you're still dealing with, something that you're still struggling with. So like I said, we're really, really grateful. All of the links for what is psycho-oncology, if you are a psychology student, you have an option of pursuing psycho-oncology as your specialization. If you want to do that, what are the institutions in India that are offering such a course? We will be linking all of that below. Just a disclaimer, none of us are linked to any of these institutions. This is just for your knowledge. This is just so that you have some kind of a boost. You can contact these institutions and find out for yourself. And for the project that Janvi and Shivani are going to be working on, the photo series, if you are from Pune, any age above 18, if you are currently undergoing chemotherapy, you can contact Shivani. I'll be listing her details down below. She's available on Instagram. She's available on WhatsApp also. So I will be giving you those details as well, for email ID as well. So please come forward. It's an amazing initiative that these two are taking up. So anyways, let's just end it here. Everyone, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and am I missing something? Share, right? Share this video. And thank you for having us. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.